The chamber doors exploded inward with a force that shattered the ornate glass ceiling 3 stories above. Ambassador Chen didn't flinch as crystalline shards rained down around her, each piece catching the light of 12 suns streaming through the council hall's observation dome. She kept her hands clasped behind her back, watching the Vorlian representative's face turn from purple to deep violet as he realized what he'd just triggered. You dare bring weapons into this sacred... Those weren't weapons, Chen said quietly. Those were our final protocols being deactivated. The Grand Council of the Galactic Concordance had stood for 47,000 years, administering justice and maintaining peace across 900 inhabited worlds. Its marble floors had never known the tread of military boots. Its air had never tasted the acrid bite of burning circuitry. Until now. Chen stepped forward, her worn boots clicking against stone that had been polished by 1,000 generations of supplicants. Behind her, the remains of Earth's diplomatic security detail lay scattered across the antechamber, their shields overloaded by the Council's own defense grid. They'd known it would happen. They'd walked in anyway. Humanity withdraws from all treaties effective immediately, she announced to the assembled representatives of 500 species. The Terran Protection Accords are void. The resource-sharing agreements are terminated. The Military Non-Proliferation Pact is dead. Councillor Vextarn of the Hive Collective chittered with laughter, his compound eyes reflecting Chen's image 1,000 times over. Your world produces nothing we need. Your people number barely 8 billion. You threaten us with what, exactly? Chen pulled a small device from her pocket. Not a weapon, not a communicator. Just a data core, smaller than her thumb. She held it up so every camera, every recorder, every witness in the hall could see it clearly. 17 hours ago, your enforcement fleet fired on the colony ship New Dawn without warning.
3,000 civilians.
400 children. Her voice never rose above conversational level. You cited Section 42 of the Concordance Charter. Unauthorized expansion into restricted space. The Verge Nebula is protected territory, Vextarn said. No species may... You've colonized none of them. You've occupied 6, using them as prison planets. Chen clicked the data core against her thumbnail, a soft sound that somehow cut through the murmur of 400 alien voices. We found the camps. The hall went silent. Lies, Vextarn hissed. The New Dawn wasn't a colony ship, Chen continued. It was a rescue vessel. We were bringing them home. She paused, letting that word hang in the air. The people you've been disappearing for 3 centuries. The ones who violated your trade laws. Your cultural protocols, your endless regulations designed to keep younger species in their place. She activated the data core. Holographic images bloomed across the chamber. Facilities carved into dead moons. Processing centers where beings were stripped of identity and purpose. Work camps that made Earth's darkest history look merciful. Councillor Mirazeth of the Kryn Empire rose from her crystalline throne. This is fabricated propaganda. The Concordance does not... Talvari tried 2,000 years ago. You glassed their homeworld. The Shkar Federation objected to your expansion policies. Where are they now? Absorbed, Mirazeth said coolly. They saw the wisdom of integration. They saw the barrels of your world breakers. Choose your next words carefully, human. Mirazeth's voice carried the weight of a species that had conquered 200 systems before humanity had invented the wheel. You stand in the heart of Concordance power. Your fleet consists of 73 vessels, most of which would be outclassed by our civilian transports. Your technology is primitive. Your influence is negligible. Chen smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. You're right about our fleet. Wrong about our technology. She gestured to the shattered doors, the dead defense grid, the security systems that hadn't stopped her from walking to the center of the most protected structure in known space. We've been studying you for 60 years, ever since we joined this council and realized what you really are. And what is that? Vextarn demanded. Old, comfortable, convinced of your own supremacy. Chen's smile widened. Vulnerable. The floor trembled. Not from engines or weapons, but from something far more fundamental. Every screen in the council hall flickered and died. Emergency lights failed to activate. Backup systems refused to engage. In the sudden darkness, Chen's voice carried clearly. Humanity didn't come here to beg for justice. We came to deliver a message. Her silhouette was backlit by the dying glow of the observation dome as, somewhere far above, the orbital defense platforms began their final shutdown sequence. You killed our children. You mocked our grief. You cited laws you wrote to protect your power. This is an act of war, Miraseth said, her voice tight with something that might have been fear. No, Chen replied. This is an act of withdrawal. War would imply we still recognize your authority. The lights came back on, harsh and white and emergency bright. Chen stood exactly where she'd been, hands still clasped, expression calm. Around her, every counselor's personal security detail had weapons drawn and pointing in every direction, confused by systems that no longer responded to their commands. Humanity is leaving, Chen said. We're taking our ships, our technology, our 8 billion people, and we're walking away from your concordance. Anyone who wants to come with us is welcome. You'll be hunted, Vexthorn snarled. Destroyed. You can try. She made it 3 steps before Counselor Jakara of the Vryn Queendom spoke for the first time. Wait. Chen stopped but didn't turn around. In her peripheral vision, she could see Zakara rising from her seat, 4 meters of scaled elegance and predatory grace. The Vryn had held their council seat longer than any other species. They'd never been conquered, never been absorbed, never been challenged. Until now. You know what you've started, Zakara said quietly. Yes, Chen replied. The Concordance will not permit this insult to stand. The Concordance doesn't have a choice. Chen finally turned, meeting the Queen's golden eyes directly. Unless you want every species in this hall to know how easily we walk through your defenses. Silence stretched between them, heavy with implications neither would voice aloud. Zakara's scaled face revealed nothing, but her tail, that unconscious indicator of Vryn emotional state, had gone perfectly still. How long? The Queen asked. How long what? How long have you controlled our systems? Long enough. She walked out through the shattered doors without looking back. Behind her, the Grand Council erupted into chaos. Accusations, denials, demands for immediate action. None of it mattered. The only sound Chen paid attention to was the soft whisper of scales on marble as Queen Jakara followed her into the antechamber, moving with the liquid grace of a born predator. I would speak with you privately, the Queen said. Chen stopped at the corridor junction where her security team's bodies lay cooling. Your council just watched your enforcement fleet murder 3,000 of my people. My council, Zakara said carefully, does many things without consulting me, yet you sit on that throne and let them speak in your name. As you stood in that chamber and spoke for Earth. We are both bound by what our positions demand, Ambassador Chen, but perhaps we are not bound to continue this path. Chen studied the alien monarch's face, looking for deception, and finding only calculation. The Vryn hadn't survived 47,000 years of concordance politics through weakness or stupidity. What are you proposing? The truth, Zakara said. About the concordance. About what it's become. About what must change. And if I'm not interested in truth, if I just want to watch your alliance burn, then you would have detonated whatever systems you've compromised instead of making threats. You would have killed us all and scattered our ashes across the void. She tilted her head, studying Chen with those ancient predator's eyes. But you didn't, which means you want something more than vengeance. Chen glanced back at the council hall, where 500 species argued over response protocols and enforcement actions, all of them missing the point entirely. They still thought this was about power, about control, about maintaining the order that had kept them comfortable for millennia. They didn't understand yet, but they would. I want my children back, Chen said quietly. The ones who survived, the ones you haven't killed yet. And then we'll see if your concordance deserves to continue existing. Zakara's expression shifted, something that might have been respect or might have been recognition of a kindred spirit. Come with me. There are things you need to see, things the Council doesn't know I've discovered. Chen hesitated. Every tactical bone in her body screamed that this was a trap, a ploy to isolate her and eliminate the threat she represented. But those same instincts recognized something else in the Vryn Queen's stance, the posture of someone who'd been waiting for this moment, preparing for it, maybe even hoping for it. 5 minutes, Chen said. Then I walk, and if anyone tries to stop me, this entire structure comes down. Agreed. Zakara moved toward a service corridor, her scales catching the emergency lighting in patterns that seemed almost deliberately hypnotic. Though I suspect when you hear what I have to say you'll want considerably more than 5 minutes. They descended through levels of the council hall that Chen hadn't known existed, past security checkpoints that opened at the Queen's approach without question or verification. The deeper they went, the older the architecture became, until they were walking through corridors carved from living stone, lit by bioluminescent organisms that had been extinct everywhere else in the galaxy for 10,000 years. Finally, Jakara stopped before a sealed vault door covered in symbols that predated the concordance itself. "What you're about to see," the Queen said, her voice echoing in the ancient tunnel, "is why I've allowed this broken system to persist, why I've sat silent while corruption rotted the foundations of what was once something noble." She placed her hand against the symbols, and they flared with cold blue light. "And why your arrival, Ambassador Chen, may be the single most important event in Concordance history." The vault opened with a hiss of escaping atmosphere that hadn't been disturbed in centuries. Inside, suspended in stasis fields, were artifacts that made Chen's breath catch in her throat. Ship components. Technology so advanced it made the Concordance's vaunted fleet look like toys. And at the center of it all, a holographic star map showing the galaxy as it had been before the Concordance rose to power. Hundreds of species, thousands of civilizations. A tapestry of life and culture that dwarfed everything Chen had ever known about galactic history. "Where are they?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Dead," Zakar said simply. The Concordance didn't build an alliance. It built a tomb. Every species that refused to submit was destroyed. Every culture that questioned the Council's authority was erased. For 47,000 years we've maintained peace by ensuring no one grows strong enough to challenge us. And you've just been waiting for someone to notice? I've been waiting for someone strong enough to survive the noticing. The Queen's tail curved into a shape that Chen's xenology training identified as profound sadness. 17 species have discovered this truth over the millennia. 16 were eliminated before they could act on the knowledge. The 17th? The Concordance learned from that mistake. Now we simply disappear those who ask too many questions. Slowly. Quietly. Prison planets on the edges of restricted space. Chen felt something cold settle in her stomach. The new dawn wasn't fired on by accident. No. Your ship was supposed to jump into an ambush, vanish without trace, and be forgotten like all the others. Zakara's expression hardened. But your Captain Reeves was better than our intelligence suggested. She broadcast what she found before we could silence her. She made sure the galaxy knew. And now the Concordance has to respond publicly. Now the Concordance has to choose. The Queen corrected. Continue as we have, enforcing order through fear and extermination, or face the possibility that someone might actually challenge our authority and win. Chen looked at the artifacts again, understanding finally crystallizing. You want me to be that someone? I want you to survive long enough to become that someone. Zakara moved toward a particular section of the vault, where a device covered in crystalline matrices pulsed with soft light. This is a communication array. It predates the Concordance by 1,000 years. It can reach every system simultaneously, broadcasting to every species, every world, every colony. Well, you're offering me a weapon. You can show them these artifacts, this evidence, the truth we've buried for millennia. You can tear down the system, or you can work with me to change it from within. Reform the Council, dismantle the prison planets, build something actually worthy of the name Concordance. Zakara's tail went still again. Both paths are dangerous. Both will likely result in war. But one preserves the infrastructure of cooperation we've built, corrupt though it's become. The other reduces everything to ashes and hope. Chen stared at the communication array, her mind racing through scenarios and consequences. If she used it, the Concordance would fracture. 500 species would have to choose sides, and most would choose survival over justice. There would be purges, retaliation, genocides committed in the name of maintaining order. But if she didn't use it, she'd be trusting the same species that had just murdered 3,000 humans to somehow reform themselves. She'd be betting everything on the word of a queen who'd sat silent while her council committed atrocities for generations. Why now? Chen asked. Why are you doing this now? Because I'm dying, Zakara said simply. Vryn lived for 6,000 years. I've ruled for 4,000 of them. My successor has already been chosen, and she believes fully in the Concordance's current path. When I'm gone, there will be no one left who remembers what we were supposed to be. How long? Perhaps 20 if I'm fortunate. The Queen's laugh was bitter. I've watched civilizations rise and fall. I've seen species go extinct. I've held my tongue while the Council ordered horrors I couldn't prevent. And now, at the end, I have a choice I should have made millennia ago. Chen turned away from the artifacts, her decision crystallizing. If I agree to try reform, you have to give me something first. Name it. Every being you've disappeared into those camps gets released and returned home. The logistics alone are your problem? Chen interrupted. You want my cooperation? You want Earth to stay in the Concordance long enough to attempt change? That's the price. Zakara's tail began to move again, faster now, agitated. The Council will never approve. Then don't ask them. Then don't ask them. Chen met the Queen's eyes steadily. You said yourself the Council does things without consulting you. Time to return the favor. For a long moment the vault was silent except for the soft hum of stasis fields and the whisper of air through ancient stone. Then Zakara's tail curved into a shape that Chen's training identified as amused respect. You're either brilliantly brave or catastrophically foolish, Ambassador. I'm a mother whose children were murdered, Chen said. I'm beyond caring which. The Queen pulled a communications device from somewhere in her elaborate robes, its surface covered in security encryptions that would take a quantum computer years to crack. She spoke in a language Chen's translator didn't recognize, rapid and commanding. Whoever was on the other end responded immediately, their tone both shocked and obedient. It's done, Zakara said, deactivating the device. My personal fleet is en route to the prison planets. Extraction begins within the hour. I've ordered full medical support and transportation to home systems. Just like that, I'm still Queen, Zakara said. For 12 more cycles, my word is law. The Council can object, but by the time they organize resistance, the prisoners will be scattered across the galaxy and impossible to recapture. Her expression shifted. Now comes the difficult part. More difficult than staging a mass prison break? Considerably? The Queen moved back toward the vault entrance. We have to convince the Council that this is their idea. That releasing the prisoners is a strategic masterstroke, not a capitulation. And we have to do it in front of 500 species who are currently debating how to destroy Earth without starting a galactic civil war. Chen followed her back into the corridors, her mind already working through the angles. They'll want concessions. They'll demand humanity's complete submission, which we won't give, which creates an impasse. Zakara's scales reflected the corridor lighting in patterns that seemed thoughtful. Unless we give them something else to focus on. Like what? The Queen's smile revealed rows of crystalline teeth. Like the truth about the Shekhar Federation. Chen's translator hiccuped over the name, trying to reconcile it with historical records that listed the Shekhar as peacefully absorbed into the Concordance 3,000 years ago. Integrated, the official histories claimed. Willing participants in the Grand Alliance. What about the Shekhar? Chen asked carefully. They're not dead. Zakara's tail began to move in complex patterns Chen couldn't interpret. Building, and they've been watching humanity very carefully. Before Chen could respond, alarms began shrieking throughout the council hall. Not the polite chimes of standard security protocols, but the bone-deep wail of actual emergency systems. Zakara's communication device lit up with override codes and priority signals. What's happening? Chen demanded. The Queen listened to the stream of reports, her expression growing darker with each passing second. When she finally looked at Chen, there was something new in her golden eyes. Fear. Your people, Zakara said slowly. What exactly did they do to our defense grid? Temporarily, to make a point. And the failsafes? The autonomous systems designed to activate if the primary grid failed? Chen felt her blood turn cold. We didn't touch those. They weren't necessary for... Someone else did. The Queen's claws extended reflexively, scraping against stone. Someone used your intrusion as cover to access systems even I don't have clearance for, and they just activated a recall protocol that's been dormant for 6,000 years. Recall of what? Everything. Zakara grabbed Chen's arm with surprising strength, pulling her toward the council hall at a run. Every fleet, every defense platform, every military asset in Concordance space. They're all being pulled back to the core systems. Chen's tactical training screamed warnings she didn't want to hear. That would leave the outer territories completely undefended. Yes. Why would anyone? Chen stopped as understanding hit her. The Shekhar. Representatives screamed at each other in 400 languages, while their security details tried desperately to re-establish control over systems that no longer responded to their commands. In the center of it all, Counselor Vextarn was broadcasting something on a frequency that made Chen's skull ache. cannot be allowed to stand. Humanity has proven itself unworthy of Concordance protection. I call for immediate project. He never finished the sentence. The observation dome shattered for the second time that day, but this time the destruction came from above. Something massive and angular punched through the crystalline ceiling, dropping into the hall with devastating precision. When the dust cleared, Chen found herself staring at a ship design that shouldn't have existed. It was beautiful in the way predators are beautiful. Efficient, deadly, optimized for a single purpose. Its hull bore symbols that matched the artifacts in Jakara's vault, and its weapons were already charging with a sound like reality tearing. A single figure emerged from the ship's cargo bay, humanoid enough to move on two legs, but clearly not human. Their armor was silver and black, marked with rank insignia that Chen's training couldn't identify. When they spoke, their voice carried through the ruined chamber without technological amplification. "The Shkar Federation returns," they announced. "The Concordance's time is ended." Counselor Mirazeth raised herself to full height, her crystalline form catching the light from a dozen suns. "This is an act of war."
"We will do nothing,"
the Shkar interrupted. "Your fleets are recalled. Your defenses are compromised. Your authority is broken. The only question now is whether the Concordance ends in fire or merely ends." Zakara stepped forward, placing herself between the Shkar warrior and the assembled council. "I am Queen Zakara, eldest of the Vryn, holder of the ancient seat. I demand to know by what right you claim, by the right of 3,000 years of oppression," the Shakar said. "By the right of genocide barely survived. By the right of every species the Concordance erased from history." They turned their attention to Chen. "And by the right of alliance with the only species brave enough to spit in the Council's face and survive long enough to tell about it." "I didn't make any alliance. Not yet." The Shkar pulled off their helmet, revealing features that were almost but not quite human, as if evolution had taken a similar path but on a different world. "But you will. 'Cause we can give you what you want, Ambassador Chen. Justice for your dead. Safety for your people. And the complete destruction of the system that killed your children." "And what do you want in return?" The Shkar's smile was sharp enough to cut near help, burning the Concordance to ash. In the silence that followed, Chen could hear her own heartbeat, the whisper of Jakara's breathing, the soft hum of weapons charging throughout the chamber. 500 species held their breath, waiting to see which way humanity would jump. She thought about Captain Reeves and the New Dawn. 3,000 civilians who'd trusted Earth's government to keep them safe, 400 children who'd never see home again, all dead because they'd dared to rescue people that Concordance wanted to forget. She thought about the artifacts in Jakara's vault. The evidence of civilizations erased, the systematic genocide hidden behind bureaucratic language and political expediency. She thought about her daughter, safe on Earth, but growing up in a galaxy where power mattered more than justice, where might made right, where asking the wrong questions got you disappeared into labor camps on dead moons. Ambassador Chen looked at the Shkar warrior, then at Queen Jakara, then at the assembled council of species who'd built their civilization on graves. And she made her choice. "No," Chen said clearly, "I won't help you burn anything." The Shakar's expression darkened. "You would side with your children's killers? I would side with the people who can actually build something better." Chen turned to face the council, her voice carrying to every corner of the ruined chamber. "The Concordance is broken, corrupt, built on lies and maintained through fear. But destroying it won't bring back the dead. It'll just create new graves." "Then what do you propose?" Vextharn demanded. "The same thing I proposed before. Humanity withdraws from all agreements, all treaties, all obligations." Chen's hands remained clasped behind her back, her posture military straight. "But we don't leave the Concordance. We stay. And we force you to live up to every principle you claim to embody." "You have no leverage," Mirazeth said coldly. "I have truth. Evidence of every crime, every cover-up, every atrocity the Council has committed, and I have the means to broadcast it to every species simultaneously." She glanced at Zakara, who gave the barest nod of confirmation. "But I won't. Not if the Council agrees to real reform." "And if we refuse?" Vextharn's voice dripped venom. Chen looked at the Shakar warrior, who was watching her with expression she couldn't quite read. "Then I give them everything they need to tear you apart. Ships, technology, intelligence, and humanity's full support for whatever they want to build from the ashes." The chamber erupted. Half the council demanded immediate action against both Earth and the Shkar. The other half called for negotiation, compromise, anything to prevent the war that was suddenly, terrifyingly real. In the chaos, only Jacquera remained still, her golden eyes locked on Chen with something that might have been pride. The Shkar warrior laughed, a sound like breaking ice. "You're gambling that they'll choose reform over destruction. I'm gambling that enough of them will." Chen met their alien gaze steadily. "Your people survived genocide. Mine almost destroyed ourselves twice before we even left our planet. Maybe between us, we can teach this concordance what survival actually costs." The warrior studied her for a long moment, then lowered their weapons. "The Shakar Federation will observe, for now. But know this, Ambassador, if your concordance fails to reform, we will not ask permission to end it." They returned to their ship without another word. The vessel lifted through the shattered dome and vanished into the stars, leaving behind a council hall that would never be the same. Queen Zakara stepped to Chen's side, her voice pitched for Chen's ears alone. "That was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've witnessed in 4,000 years. "It was necessary," Chen said simply. "Now comes the hard part." "Which is?" "Convincing them it's possible." Zakara's tail curved into that shape Chen had learned meant grim amusement. "Then let us begin." Together they walked to the center of the council hall where 500 species waited to learn if their galaxy would survive, and in the shadows at the edge of the chamber where the emergency lights couldn't quite reach, something else waited. Watched. Calculated. The same intelligence that had used humanity's intrusion to access concordance systems. The same force that had recalled the fleets and opened the door for the Shkar's return. It had waited 3,000 years for this moment. It could wait a little longer to see if Ambassador Chen's gamble would pay off, or if it would need to implement the contingency protocols that would reduce the entire concordance to cosmic dust and start evolution over from scratch. Either way, the galaxy was changing. The only question was whether that change would be guided by wisdom or written in fire. In orbit above the council hall, Earth's remaining ships received new orders: not to attack, not to flee, but to position themselves as witnesses, recording everything, ensuring that whatever happened next would be remembered accurately, that the truth would survive even if they didn't. And on Earth itself, in a command center buried 3 kilometers below the Atlantic Ocean, generals and politicians watched the feeds from the council hall and prepared for a war they hoped would never come. But humanity had learned long ago that hope wasn't a strategy. So they armed themselves. They planned. They calculated what it would cost to fight a civilization that had conquered 900 worlds before Earth had discovered fire, and they accepted that some costs were worth paying. Ambassador Chen stood in the heart of Concordance power and spoke truth to species that had forgotten what truth meant. She offered alliance to enemies and demanded accountability from allies. She gambled humanity's future on the belief that even the oldest, most corrupt systems could change if someone pushed hard enough. History would remember this moment. The question was whether it would be remembered as the day the Concordance began its redemption, or the day its 47,000-year reign finally definitively ended. Chen didn't know which she preferred. She just knew that standing silent was no longer an option. So she stood tall, and she spoke clearly, and she trusted that somewhere in this galaxy there were still beings who remembered that power without justice was just tyranny with better marketing. And when the council finally grudgingly voted to hear humanity's terms for reform, Chen allowed herself the smallest smile. It was a beginning, nothing more. But humanity had built civilizations from less. Now they would see if they could rebuild this one, or if they'd have to help burn it down and start over. Either way, the council had learned one critical lesson. Earth answered to no one but themselves. And that made all the difference. 2 halves.